the first webinar in the Tag DEI Society series. We're so happy all of you could join us today. I am Cassia Baker, the sponsorship chair for the DEI Society. And today I'm excited to spend time with you and to share 4 thought leaders with you who will inspire you and help you to understand this very big, wide topic that we've put before you today a little bit better. First, I want to thank our sponsors. We couldn't have done this without Diversity Cyber Council, who is our webinar sponsor today, as well as our society sponsors, FleetCor and Comcast Business. We are delighted to have a Comcast team member on this call as well presenting to you, and we are so grateful for their support. I'm particularly excited to engage you with these speakers because this is a topic that is very prevalent to our time. We are talking, of course, about DEI in the lens of the tech sector, workforce, resources, how to get started. And I'd like to introduce my co-host, Develle Turner, and have him introduce himself for a moment. Develle?
Well, good afternoon, everybody, or good morning. My name is Develle Turner, 30-year HR professional in a number of different capacities. Going to be starting a new role as director of DEI for a company called Restaurant Technologies, and really happy to be here today.
Thanks, Develle. And let's set the stage really quickly for everyone, remind you all about who you're going to be hearing from, and share a little bit about today. So as I mentioned, we have some wonderful thought leaders lined up for you that are industry practitioners, and they're going to be looking at tech through the workforce and DEI lens. We're going to touch on workforce issues, industry outlook. We're going to share some resources with you. And we are particularly excited that the leaders on this panel have these very specialized lenses to look at this topic. I'm going to share a little bit about who you're going to be hearing from, but first I'll talk you through the agenda. So of course, at the top of the hour, you're going to hear a little bit about the Tag DEI Society and how you can get involved if you'd like to. We are then going to talk about framing DEI in tech with LaShaun Solomon. She's also our past chair for the Tag DEI Society. And then we'll move into tech outlook from a hiring manager with Aliyah Youmans. And finally, we'll move into a leadership perspective, kind of pulling all of this together and what it looks like from the top. And that will be with Kianta Prince-Bryant of Comcast. And then we'll close it out with resources. Dr. Loretta Daniels is going to talk through bridge builders and how that can support you on your journey. So we'll go back to introducing our speakers. I am delighted to introduce Kianta and Aliyah. Kianta Prince-Bryant is currently the Vice President of Project Management and Implementation at Comcast. She has held many positions previously and has a very diverse and fascinating background that's led her to her current leadership role. Prior to Comcast, Kianta held positions at Florida Power and Light. She's a graduate of Meredith College in North Carolina, where she holds a BA, and she also has a master's degree in business administration from Baker University. She's very active in her community. She's part of the Links Network and a lifetime member of Delta Sigma Theta. We're also going to be joined by Aliyah Youmans, talent acquisition manager at Southern Company. She is a human resources professional, and she's extremely qualified for this role. So, Develle, can we share who else we'll hear from?
Absolutely. So we also have on the panel, very proud to say, Dr. Loretta Daniels, Director of TAG Bridge Builders. Dr. Daniels is an expert in organizational leadership and DEI with 21 years in different positions at Kennesaw State University, among other things. So very proud to have her on the panel today, as well as another Comcast member, employee, Bebita, Metellus. And Bebita is a marketing communication specialist there at Comcast. Rich 12 years with Comcast in various roles there. And then also, last but not least, we have LaShaun Solomon, who's the head of Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion Partnerships at Pyramid Consulting. 14 years in the marketing, D&I, and sales space is really her background. So very strong panel today.
Thank you, Develle. So I'd like to say that I believe Bebita is running a little bit behind from her last meeting. So I'm going to share a little bit about the TAG DEI Society before we dive directly into this exciting conversation so we can make sure there's time for questions at the end. So TAG DEI Society is a forum to share innovative best practices for promoting diversity and collaboration. We provide networking opportunities and mentorship opportunities, as well as engaging with the many societies that are part of the Technology Association of Georgia's network. Of course, you are always welcome to reach out in the chat or reach out to one of us directly on LinkedIn or through our emails if you'd like to get involved. When we close out this event, Develle and I are going to share opportunities to really engage and be a partner with us as we move toward a more collaborative tech world. So with that in mind, let's jump straight into framing DEI in tech and hand it over to LaShaun Solomon.
Thank you so much, Cassia, for the warm introduction. Hello, everyone, again. My name is LaShaun Solomon, past chair of TAG DEI Society and assistant vice president of DEI strategy and portfolio management at Pyramid Consulting, one of the largest IT staffing firms in the US, and we're headquartered right in Alpharetta, Georgia. Now, considering everyone can be at a different point in their DEI journey, I'm going to first level set and share with you some key data points about the state of DE&I in tech. Then I'll talk about what does DEI mean and how does it intersect with the workforce and company business practices. I will then tell you more about how Pyramid Consulting works with corporations to put DE&I into action, and how those looking to pivot into a tech career can do so. So let's start with some information on the state of DEI in tech. And you are going to see a window on the screen. And if I could just get a verbal yes from Cassia or Develle that you see this graph.
Yes, ma'am.
Fabulous. Okay, now the data is not so fabulous. So to start, here we see what racial discrimination looks like. Black technologists were by far the most likely to say that racial inequity occurs frequently or very frequently in the tech industry. 57% of Black respondents said that racial inequality, a group being harmed or limited due to their race, was either frequent or very frequent in tech. DICE notes that this number is up slightly from 55% last year. Hispanic and Latinx tech workers were the most likely to give this answer, and 35% did. 31% of white technologists, 29% of Asian and Pacific Islanders, and 25% of Asian Indians also gave this answer. 5% or less of Black technologists said that racial inequality never occurs in tech, which is the lowest of any group surveyed. So the key takeaway from this is, again, that Black technologists were by far the most likely to say that racial inequality occurs frequently or very frequently in the tech industry. And you can see how that impacts various demographic groups. Now, as far as the witness of racial discrimination, Black respondents were most likely to witness discrimination against any racial group in the form of a lack of leadership opportunities, which is 53%. Asian AAPI technologists were most likely to witness a lack of promotional opportunities, 35%. And Hispanic and Latinx tech workers were most often witnessed salary and hiring discrimination, both at 31%. The takeaway here is that different racial and gender groups tend to notice different types of discrimination. Now let's talk about gender discrimination. Women were most likely to report witnessing discrimination in salary and benefits. That came in at 54%. Followed closely by leadership opportunities, which was at 50%. Promotional opportunities came in at 49%, and respect for one's technical ability, 49%. It's also worth noting that women and Black employees in tech were by far most likely to report they witnessed discrimination in the form of lack of respect, for someone's technical abilities. So I think this helps sets the stage as far as the reason of why diversity, equity, and inclusion is relevant, it is imperative, and it is necessary. So how do we define diversity, equity, and inclusion? I see we have a chat. If you would like to just type in, what does diversity, equity, and inclusion mean to you? I'd love to see your thoughts here as I go along. But diversity typically starts with race, ethnicity, and gender, and having representation of people from a range of different social and ethnic backgrounds and of different genders, sexual orientations, and experiences. Equity. Equity is ensuring everyone has access to the knowledge and resources to compete effectively and equitably. Inclusion. Inclusion is ensuring that everyone feels safe, welcomed, valued, empowered, and respected. So when you put that into perspective of the definitions of diversity, equity, and inclusion, you can see why these are relevant to today's business and how it's currently showing up in the tech landscape. Now, how does all of this intersect? It intersects with how corporations responsibly source vendors and suppliers. A diverse supplier is at least 51% owned and operated by an individual or group that is part of a traditionally underrepresented or underserved group. Common classifications are small business enterprises, minority-owned, woman-owned, along with LGBTQ+ and veteran-owned enterprises, and proprietors with disabilities. At Pyramid Consulting, we are a certified minority-owned business that provides staffing, workforce development, and IT solution services. At Pyramid Consulting, diversity, equity, and inclusion is a business imperative, and it's integrated throughout every division of our business. Our staffing division helps companies build a more diverse and inclusive workforce with AI-powered inclusive recruiting technology. Our IT solutions division leverages diverse teams to elevate customers' overall success with innovative technology solutions. And our workforce development division, most commonly known as GenSpark, is helping create a more diverse and inclusive tech pipeline of talent that is purposefully trained to meet employers' most urgent technology needs. GenSpark is the combined solution where corporations and talent can come together to create a more diverse workforce. And I'm going to now share my screen again, and I'm going to show you a brief video on how GenSpark works. So bear with me again. We should now see the window. And now I'm going to advance to the video. All right, I just saw everyone's note. I'm sorry you couldn't hear the sound. It also included today's lotto numbers. So my apologies with that. I will make sure that you all get access to this video following today's session. But essentially, our GenSpark program is helping to ensure that companies are getting access to the tech talent that they need today. And GenSpark is responsibly sourcing talent from underrepresented groups. The key here is that at GenSpark, 76% of the talent we source and we train comes from underrepresented groups. We train on over 100 technologies. And additionally, we are delivering customized cohorts that are skilled to meet Fortune 500 companies' demands when it comes to technology, whether it's Java development, .NET, Guidewire, you name it. We provide training on those technologies and are sourcing the talent, training the talent. We even pay the talent while we train them, and then we place them on contract to hire with the client. Our clients also can convert this talent into full-time opportunities. And when we talk about the success of the GenSpark program, over 90% of our GenSparkers convert to full-time with our clients. And last year alone, we graduated over 500 people from the GenSpark program. And this year, we are trending to graduate over 750. So at GenSpark, which is a part of Pyramid Consulting's family of companies, we are recasting a more diverse workforce. We are meeting companies where they are and helping them to create a more diverse workforce, and also creating diversity in tech. I'll now hand it back over to Cassia.
Thank you, LaShaun. And as a reminder to all of our participants, we will have a Q&A at the end. So if you have questions for each of our panelists, we will be delighted to share them. So you're welcome to drop them in the chat while you're thinking about them, and we can redirect them, or wait until the end. So next up, Develle and I are very excited to welcome to the stage Aliyah Youmans, a talent acquisition manager at Southern Company. Aliyah has decades of experiences in human resources, and she is also just an inspiring person to talk to. So let's hit it off by having Aliyah tell you a little bit about herself and why she's so passionate about this conversation. Aliyah.
All right. Thank you, Cassia. I appreciate the opportunity. And when I got the invite for this, I was really excited because this is a space that is near and dear to my heart. So thank you for the invitation and opportunity. But again, Aliyah Youmans, I am the talent acquisition manager at Southern Company here in Atlanta. And I have, over 20 plus years of experience in the human resources space, specifically in talent acquisition. And so I have recruited in several industries such as healthcare, finance, and most recently in technology for the past 7 years at Southern Company. So I've seen a lot, been around for a while, seen a lot of things transpire in this industry. So again, DE&I, very near and dear to my heart. And, you know, as a HR professional and a woman of color, I am very interested and invested in this space. So thank you again for the invitation.
Perfect. Well, I'll kick us off with the first question. And this is one that's very relevant. I was just at a tech conference. This whole team knows the last 4 or 5 days I've been out of the state. And I love looking at stats in real life. And I would say in that room, which was, manager and above, I would say if I was being generous, less than 2% of the room were women. So let's talk about that for a minute. What are some key issues that you see in terms of the recruitment of women in tech, and particularly women of color?
Yeah, so there are several key issues, and just in respect of time, I'll just name one that I think is more prevalent that I've seen more than anything. One of the I think issues is really, it starts with pipeline development, and it really hones in on a little bit about what LaShaun just spoke about in terms of workforce development. I think is a shortage in several spaces within technology, specifically within the cybersecurity space. In technology, we do, I will say, get a good bit of talent, women of color, just female talent in general throughout the technology organization, but we seem to suffer just a little bit within the cybersecurity space. And I think a lot of that just comes from just a lack of exposure to this industry. One of the things that we have done at Southern Company is we are very intentional about leveraging programs. I know LaShaun talked about the GenSpark. We've leveraged a program here in Atlanta called Year Up, where we take individuals who are from the underrepresented communities who are being trained in the technology field. And sometimes we bring them on sort of as contractors, just as, LaShaun described. And if those, particular participants work out, then we will convert them to a full-time employee. But it's very important for us to always look at workforce development, pipeline development, identifying opportunities where we can start to spark that interest very early, even if that means going back to the middle schools and high schools and really giving a lot of individuals exposure to this space so that they understand that these opportunities are available and they pay well. So I think that's really where it starts, is those early years where you can, share that exposure about this industry so that by the time, you've got individuals that are going off to college, they have some knowledge base of this industry and all it has to offer. So I think that's really where it starts.
Yeah, I think you're absolutely right. And that's a great answer to that question. The next one, we want to kind of talk about the branding of the tech industry.
Yes.
And specifically a question around what are the invisible walls that diverse individuals may encounter even before they reach the interview stage that really can discourage them from entering the ring, the tech industry?
Yeah, thanks, Develle. And that's a great question. So when it comes to branding, one of the things that I will say is that branding, in the day and age that we're in a really just this era of social media. So when it comes to social media, how important that is to a lot of people, and they make lots of decisions based on what they see. With Southern Company, I will tell you one of the things that we just did with our technology organization, because when people hear about Southern Company, they don't think of us as a company that has a strong technology organization. They think of engineers. We are the parent company of Georgia Power. And so when you think about Georgia Power, a lot of folks think about the engineering field. And so they don't think of us as a very strong technology-based organization. And we are. We've done some great things in this industry in terms of even the cloud space, which is, where everybody is going right now. And we've done some really innovative things in that space, but it's no good if no one knows about it. And so one of the things that we just implemented just recently, I want to say about 2 months ago, is we created what's called a LinkedIn Life page, which really tells the story behind the technology organization, where we are in this space, what we're doing in the community, and just the opportunities that we've got to offer. So it really starts there with just that branding piece. But one of the things, as I work with a lot of our hiring managers, a lot of our recruiters work with our hiring managers, one of the things that we try to avoid is we want to make sure, in terms of those invisible walls, that managers are aware when they post opportunities, that they are aware of the language that's included in those job descriptions. There are statistics out here now that indicate that for some women, based on how you sort of draft your job description, it can really be a deterrent for those individuals to want to even apply based on the language that's there. So we are very intentional about consulting with our managers around the language that's in that job description so that they can ensure that the language that they're placing in there is very inclusive. And so we work on that, again, very intentional about that. And when we post opportunities, we have intake meetings with our managers and those discussions are had. So that's very important for us. And we want to make sure that we are very focused on DE&I and that our language and job descriptions speak that.
I love that. We've read so many studies that say that women self-eliminate themselves if they aren't 100% qualified. And
Yep.
it's something that does deter you from really seeing what the talent pool is if they've self-eliminated before they
That's
even get.
right.
I love that. So it goes, I'm a practical person. And since we have a hiring manager on the line, I want to talk to you a little bit about the market. So we've seen some softness for people who are coming into tech, either straight out of university or changing careers. Talk to us a little bit about where you're seeing growth, where people should be looking for growth, and then also areas that you're maybe seeing that are softening and maybe people should push more toward the growth areas.
Yeah, so I'll start with the soft areas. And I'll say, and I can only really speak for Southern Company. I'm seeing some trends with other organizations, but I'll speak to what I'm seeing here at our company. So the softened areas, I would say, is probably within the leadership realm. We have a very good, historically, a good sort of process where we are very intentional about growing and developing internal talent. And so when we have leadership opportunities within our company, we have sort of succession plans that we put together, and we've identified leaders that we want to transition into specific roles. So you'll see less of that from us because we are very focused on growing and developing the folks that are here and are invested in this organization. So, but as it relates to other opportunities that are growing, I'll tell you, as it relates to our company, we are growing by leaps and bounds. We are very innovative in our space as it relates to technology. And so the opportunities are abundant. We've got about, I'd say maybe 125 plus opportunities that we've got posted right now. Our organization is spread across the Southeast. So they could, potentially be in Alabama or in Georgia, or we've got opportunities, in Mississippi. We acquired Southern Company Gas back in 2017. So we've got other companies within the Southern Company footprint that sit in Illinois and Virginia. So we do have opportunities available. The most that I've seen just prevalently in the last maybe 6 months, a lot of application developers. You've got a lot of opportunities in the cybersecurity space as well. That's one of the areas that, I've identified where there is probably less than 5% of the folks that we offer opportunities to are women of color. So just those opportunities are really good. And I will tell you, one of the things in terms of people who are, in college and are looking into transitioning into the technology space, please look at internship opportunities. That is the best way to get your foot in the door with a lot of these companies. You've got students who graduate and they have no experience under their belt, and then they're looking for opportunities and they get frustrated because it's hard to get your foot in the door. But what I would recommend, always look for internship opportunities. It's a great way to get some exposure to that space. We've got a very robust program at Southern Company that pays well and offers great benefits. So not just with Southern, there are other companies that offer those internships as well. So please pursue those opportunities if you can.
That's great. One of the things also, Aliyah, we want to ask you about is during the interview stage, and actually Glassdoor shows that a study they did is 75% of job seekers are actually trying to assess what kind of DE&I strategies a company has. That's important to a job seeker. So what are some of the key signs that a company has DEI strategies in place that would lead to, candidate success?
Yeah, so the first thing I would say as a job seeker, do your homework. That's number one. Take the time to really research the companies that you're interested in. Be very intentional about that. One of the key signs I will tell you is when you do your research, look at the company website, scour through that. I can tell you a lot of companies, when we went through that era of, where George Floyd was killed, and then you've got all of these companies that are now implementing these DE&I strategies and programs within their organizations. You'll see a lot of that got initiated and implemented during that time. But those companies who are really vested in that space, when you look on their website, you see strategies, you see them being very intentional about how they plan to approach DE&I. At Southern Company, we have been very intentional about it. We actually have now, we put in place back in 2021, a process where when candidates apply to a particular position at Southern, and the recruiter sends the resumes to the hiring manager, it is in a redacted format, which really means that any identifiable information that can lead to who a candidate is taken away. So all of that information is removed. So the only thing that they see is their core work experience. And essentially that's really all that matters. So we implemented that back in 2021. We have seen a tremendous uptick in the percentage of hires and women of color at Southern Company because of that. So look for companies that have strategies in place, talk to people who you know that work there, find out about their culture. Because that really tells you a lot in terms of where their commitment is. So those are just some of the things that I would just a high level for me that I would mention.
I love that, Aliyah, because we talk so much about red flags when you're a candidate, but we don't talk about green flags.
Yep.
And what. And I love that. Well, we're running perfectly on time, but we could talk to you all day. Thank you so much for your enthusiasm and your wisdom. And of course, if anyone's interested in connecting with Aliyah, please look her up on LinkedIn, follow what she's working on. And thank you so much. I hope it's not the last time that we get to hear from you at the TAG DEI Society.
Absolutely not. Thank you, Cassia. You have a great day.
Thanks, Aliyah. So next up is Kianta Prince-Bryant, Vice President of Project Planning and Implementation at Comcast. We talked about her bio before. Kianta is just a whirlwind, a powerhouse, and she has had an incredible career and has so many nuggets of wisdom to share. I'd like to welcome her to turn on her camera and join us. I see you. Hi, Kianta.
Oh, hi. I was like, I turned it on, I thought.
We are so excited to talk to you today. I want to start first by letting you introduce yourself for a second and tell us who you are and what you do.
Yeah, so first of all, thank you so much for the invitation to be here with this group. I'm new to Atlanta, so I'm learning the area and the different organizations. So this is a wonderful opportunity. But I am Vice President of Planning and Implementation at Comcast. I report into our Technical Operations and Engineering SVP, where we are responsible for all of the technical and engineering operations from our network, starting at the head end, all the way to our fulfillment techs, which hopefully you all are all Comcast customers, and they are in your home. Our division office is headquartered here in Atlanta, where we serve over 13 different states in the Southeast. My job responsibility really is about focusing on execution and rolling out our key strategic projects across those 13 states so we can ensure that we have great growth opportunities and then we're building out a solid network.
I am so excited you're here because you speak to so many people. You have this blend of technical skills and soft skills, and your path to a leadership position has been fascinating. So I'll start with the bottom. What advice would you give someone who's new to the industry, who's trying to work their way, and maybe they came from a different industry entirely, and they're trying to find what skills match up and how they can really enter the workforce?
Yeah, so this is something that I've focused on and even, question myself to assess how I navigate my own career. So there's really 3 areas. The first one being focus on being a student of the business, right? Have thoughtful questions, but always question from a perspective of seeking to understand. And before you know it, you're speaking and learning the language and talking in professional terms in the space that you're in, and you don't even realize how you got there. The second item is identifying your superpower. And this is an interesting one because there's all these buzzwords in the industry, but you really need to lean in on understanding your individual superpower and also being able to articulate it very clearly and in a confident way. And I think oftentimes we aren't confident in what we're bringing to the table, particularly as minorities and women in the tech and engineering space. And so we need to lean in on what that narrative is, right? So that we can communicate that. So I'll just give a quick example of something that I've learned. And it is really, my background is project management. And I have a longstanding history in that space, but my superpower is being able to take very complex strategic and technical initiatives and breaking them up into components so that they can be consumed from the executive level all the way to the front line. That's what I bring to the table. And that's one of the things that I've learned over the last really few years. I won't say that I've been doing that a long time, but really the past few years to be able to articulate that in a very succinct way and be confident about what I'm saying. And then the third item would be, and I can't take credit for this, but in one of my earlier careers, a leader that I used to have used to say, be a star where you are. If you are a star where you are and you're focusing on where you are in the current space that you're in and being that student of the business, your next opportunity is most likely going to present itself to you. And so you will have someone that is recommending you for a position or encouraging you to apply for a position, or they're talking to someone about you when you're not in the room because you've been performing, you've been exceeding expectations, and you are able to identify through work your transferable skills so that they're seeing you at that next level of competency and capability.
I love that too, because it ties into what Aliyah was talking about just starting where you start and building the brand around that and not being anxious about having to have a certain title or seeking a certain thing. So I love that. Can you talk a little bit more about that? Share some strategies you've used in your career to build those new skills when you've entered a new role.
Sure. So one of the things, and Harvey J. Coleman wrote a book called The Organizational Culture Revealed, Empowering Yourself. And it's on my nightstand. I still reference it to this day, just as a refresher. But I was in a leadership development course at a previous organization, and that was one of the fundamental readings. And it talks about this methodology called PI, performance, image, and exposure. And, the performance piece really is only about 10%, but it's foundational. Again, being a star where you are, you have to be performing. You have to be knocking it out the park. Even to be recognized, you must perform. The second item is the I in PI, and it's image. That's about 30% of what factors into your success, right? And I remember when I got my first manager role, I had a senior leader call me into her office and she said, Jeans Friday no longer exists for you. And I was like, what? But we can wear jeans on Friday. Why does it not exist for me? She's like, you need to understand, you have to present yourself in a way where people see you performing at the next 2 levels above where you are today. And I said, So it's really about creating that brand image and getting people to see you in a role before you're even in that role. So that's the image piece. And then the last piece is exposure. Take those stretch assignments, right? You're going to create your network. You're going to expand your influence. You're going to have people talking about the work that you're delivering outside of your day-to-day job. And that's going to create opportunity and show your skills in a very non-traditional way.
I love that.
And then the last thing I would say to that is what's worked for me is developing those organic relationships and creating your own informal board of directors. And so I have folks that from 20 years ago, I still reach back to and say, hey, I need to bounce something off of you and how should I handle this? And, I respect their career. I expect what they are investing in me. And they often do the same thing. In fact, I had someone that was on my team 20 years ago in my first role as a manager. She was here in Atlanta and reached out and we had dinner. And so she was able to give me some insight on some things that I was bringing up saying, you know, I'm not sure about this, you know, and so she saw me in a different way and was able to speak into my life even when I wasn't recognizing it at that point in time. So those would be the two things that I would say.
I love that. And I love that it's an acronym too, easier to remember that way.
That's right.
So I'll ask you a version of the question I asked Aliyah about the practical side of things. So in your industry, where are you seeing areas for growth? When you're a job seeker, sometimes it's stressful to type in keywords to a search engine. So let's navigate people toward areas of growth. Where are you seeing that in your industry?
Yeah, so I'm going to be very selfish in my approach here because I am in the tech and engineering space. And believe it or not, you know, I'm the first female in this role here at my company. And it's amazing the number of people that want to reach out and find out, well, how did you get here and how did you do this? Construction and engineering is an area where we just don't see women traditionally. And when I say construction, I'm talking about people that are building out our network. So when you want internet, high-speed internet, and you see folks that are out on the streets and they are making that happen, we just don't see a lot of women in that space. On the other side of that, engineering for us, you know, monitoring the network, familiarity with fiber, networking and switching, the technical design of our systems. That's where I am seeing huge growth opportunity, particularly as we come out of COVID. There has been a huge increase in the entrepreneurial spirit. There's been a huge increase in folks working from home and needing that access to data very quickly. So markets that we have not traditionally tapped into that may be very rural in nature, there's now an increased demand to expand our network and build out those areas from an infrastructure perspective. So it's prime opportunity for women to move into that space.
That's such great advice. We've talked about it before. If you can't see it, you can't be it. So I love that you've brought up this particular sector so that people can focus more on it. So that brings me back to something you said earlier about building your board of directors. Statistics tell us that one of the challenges that women particularly face is finding that sponsor, finding that mentor, finding the person who's going to speak to their skills when they're not in the room. So talk to us a little bit about what advice you'd offer someone who's looking for a mentor, looking for that sponsorship. How do you do that?
Yeah. So again, I like to go back to the word organic, right? You have to get yourself out there. Once you get yourself out there, you also have to recognize that no one goes it alone, right? We all have to realize that someone has invested in our success, but we have to make ourselves available for them to be able to see what we are contributing and how they can invest in us and how we can invest in them. So it has to be a mutually beneficial relationship. And that's where the organic comes in. I did not enjoy reaching out to people. I'm a natural introvert, right? And so I had to find a way to build my network. And the way that I did that was whenever I had prime opportunities to meet someone, I would seize that opportunity. If someone introduced me, or if I was at a session with them and I had a question, then I would add on to that. How can I connect with you? Or are you okay with me continuing to connect with you? It's not a cold call. You're not reaching out to them, you know, blindly, but you're reaching out when you've already had that connection, which makes it more organic for that relationship to be able to be developed, right? And so, you know, that's one of the ways that I have built my informal board of directors. And usually it just starts with a one quick question, or I saw them speak somewhere, and then we connected because we found a common interest. And then that relationship has continued.
I love that. And I bet people are watching us now thinking of you that way. Because every time I talk to you, even 5 minutes with you is always inspiring because you pack so much into just a few minutes. And I know you have a busy day, so I'm going to thank you for this, but thank you for your leadership. Thank you for your visibility. And thank you for all the work that you've put in to reach where you are. It's wonderful to see.
Thank you so much. Glad to be here.
Thank you, Kianta. So I'm going to welcome back to the stage Dr. Loretta Daniels. Dr. Loretta Daniels runs TAG's Bridge Builders program, and I'd love for her to talk to us about what that means and how that can help you.
Yeah, thanks for having me, Cassia. I think this is a great platform to discuss what we're going to discuss today. TAG Bridge Builders was formed in the latter part of last year as a social equity initiative and justice initiative, just to make sure that TAG was committed to diversity, equity, and inclusion. And they are. You know, they're working from within. And now we're pushing it out. Their board is more diverse now. The employees are more diverse. And so it's really important that TAG taps into this particular sector. And it's very important for me because I think the reason I was selected to build this program was because my experience lies as a C-suite executive in the medical device industry, which you just don't see that a whole lot. Also, as a DEI professional, as a leadership expert, and as a professor of leadership, I think it's really crucial to add all those components. And then also as an entrepreneur. And so what we've done is we've tried to develop a program that really touches on all of those problems. And right now, in my opinion, when you take a look at DEI, so many companies are seeing it as a program. And I heard Aliyah say this earlier. You can't see DEI as a program. So they're looking at it as a program instead of a strategy. And so what happens, a strategy is something that companies put in place because they invest monies into it. They invest capital into it because they're looking for positive results. The bottom line is they're looking to increase their bottom line, whether it's revenue or something that's dear to them. But what happens to programs when the economy goes down some? What happens is programs are getting cut. And that's what I'm hearing now. I heard someone say the other day, companies are just tired of, diversity and equity. They don't want to hear it anymore. Well, that's sad because this is a part of life. It's not just a program. Businesses should see this as a strategy. When I was a C-suite executive in the medical device industry, it was a strategy because I understood the importance of diverse thought. But unfortunately, I was the only person of color around the table. And so it's really important for us to understand and to share with anyone we have an opportunity to share with that DEI is not an initiative. It's a strategy that companies need to embrace. So we can move on to the next slide. So here's the hard reality of everything. When you take a look at the workforce and you take a look at businesses, Black people represent 62% of the workforce in the United States. However, only 8% of these tech jobs are employed by Black individuals. And just 3%, that's a small percentage, are executives in the C-suite arena in tech jobs. So that needs to be taken care of. That needs to be addressed, in my opinion. And let's take a look at Black entrepreneurs. Only 1% of all Black startups, these are Black-owned companies, out of the 17,000 plus in Georgia, are startup companies, are entrepreneurs. So TAG Bridge Builders really wanted to address this. We wanted to have an impact on these numbers. And again, what I look to do is I look to take my experience and I wanted to say, how do we work with this? And I have an awesome advisory board. Southern Company is a part of the advisory board for TAG. Comcast is a part of the advisory board for TAG as well. These companies have invested in TAG Bridge Builders to make sure that we are creating a program that has an impact. And so if you take a look at the next slide, I want to go through that model with you of what that looks like. And so here's our goal. Our goal is to impact and advance 1,000 Black people in technology careers over the next 5 years. And so here's what it means to me. When I accepted this position, it was a hard decision for me. But when I took a look at the overall and I thought, this is a way that we can really create a pathway for generational wealth. DEI sometimes can be seen as a quota system. Let's make sure we get the numbers in, or let's make sure we're doing what's politically correct. This is about life. This is about the Black lives in Georgia. And right now, TAG Bridge Builders is focused on Black tech talent. Now, over the years, we will expand that to all minorities. But right now, in order for any person to gain generational wealth, you need an opportunity to earn income. This is income over paying rent. This is income over being able to go on vacation. You need to be able to invest and save. And so if you look at that arrow, it's going up. The first area that we tapped into was tech talent, the workforce. With TAG Ed, they focus on placing jobs. With TAG Bridge Builders, we look at how do we help companies to overcome the challenge of not being able to have Black tech talent. And like Comcast, we do have a program that's designed to scrub out all the bias. But before I accepted this position, I was highly recruited by companies, especially tech companies, to start a DEI department for them or to enhance theirs. And I asked them, what's your number one challenge? And what they would say to me is, I can't find the Black tech talent. And I've got 100 and some jobs to fill. I don't have time to go out and look. We placed the job, here. We're just not getting the applicants. And so one of the strategies that we've developed was we have a Black tech talent resume database, meaning specifically, if you are looking specifically to make sure that you are adding Black tech talent, you can go into this database. This database includes mid-level professionals and also entry-level professionals. All of these individuals have either an IT degree from a college, certificate, and other experience. And so that's one of the ways that we try to address this problem. The next is, how do we help mid-level Black talent? These are directors level or higher level managers. How do we help them advance to C-suite positions? And this is the challenge. Most companies will have a succession plan. And kudos to Comcast and to Southern Company for their succession plans. But again, when we look at those numbers don't lie. So what happens is a typical succession plan is designed so that you identify leaders early on. You identify leaders and you put them in that succession plan. But what happens is most succession plans are designed not to protect against social capital and bias, because there are some individuals who are saying, here, I'm identifying this leader here. I want to get them into the program. But in most cases, it's someone you know and you trust. And so that's social capital. It could be bias, whether it's intentional or unintentional. But what happens for most companies is they don't have a full, robust pipeline of Black tech talent. For me, myself, anytime I was promoted, it was because I had someone who recognized what I brought to the table. All the things that Kianta just spoke about, is very true in leadership. But even when you do some of those things, in some cases, social capital or bias will prevent you from doing that. And so again, that framework that we've designed eliminates social capital and eliminates bias when it comes to succession planning, so that we can see that needle being moved when it comes to more Black individuals in the tech space in a C-suite role. Now, another program that we've designed is a mentorship program. It's very unique because it only focuses on Black tech talent in the mid-level area. And so we are having a mentorship program that these particular individuals are being mentored by C-suite executives. And I myself, I am interviewing everyone that's a part of this, because the goal is to not only mentor them, but to be able to sponsor them. And there's a difference between mentorship and sponsorship. You want someone to be able to, by the end of that mentorship period, to pick up the phone and say, here, you want to hire Jen or you want to hire Bill. I can vouch for them. That's sponsorship. And to give you an example, I've interviewed so many different mentors who wants to be a part of this program. But one of the challenges is when I ask about why do you want to be a part of this program, what challenges have you witnessed when it comes to Black individuals being promoted? And the person with a great heart says, you know, I've mentored a lot, but right now in today's society, we don't really have that social capital and bias. So they really didn't understand the challenges that a Black person faces in the workplace. Our mentors need to understand that there are barriers, and we have to work as a mentor to help them break those barriers, to do all they can do in that space. So that's what we're doing to help to advance to the next level. And then finally, when it comes to Black entrepreneurs, it's been a challenge. You know, as you saw that 1% number, it's there not because there's not a lot of tech businesses that are starting up. It's just they don't have the access to the same venture capital. They don't have the access to the same seed money that some other companies who are starting up have. And so we've developed two programs, Tag Connect and Tag Invest Connect. Tag Connect is a Shark Tank environment. We had our first one in January. It was a huge success, a sellout event where we had buyers who are companies, corporate companies within Tag. Comcast was a part of it, Home Depot, a lot of these large companies, they will sit and they serve as a buyer. And the intent is for the Black entrepreneurs who are sellers to be able to have direct access to be able to be a vendor in their company, to provide their products and services. You know, you don't get that opportunity a lot unless you've got some social capital where you can move to the top of the line as a vendor. You know, it's going to be very difficult for you. So Tag Connect was great. We've got excellent coverage. Our next one is in September. We only have 6 spots for entrepreneurs on each event. So we're very particular about who we bring in. So that's open. It worked extremely well. And the last one is Tag Invest Connect, which will start up this year. We're actually forming it now, where we have Black entrepreneurs and venture capitalists, angel investors. It's going to be a Shark Tank-like environment, but on a grander scale, to allow opportunities for these Black startups to get funding from companies who are very much interested in investing in them. Because sometimes, you know, when you have a Black entrepreneur in the room, and then there's someone there that's not considered Black or minority, they become overshadowed sometimes. So we're trying to eliminate that so that all eyes are on them and learning what they can do. So again, in a combination of all these initiatives that we have, it helps us to develop a more robust program. So thank you for the opportunity of sharing it.
Thank you so much. This is food for thought. And I love you pointing out the difference between mentorship and sponsorship, because traditionally we have kind of thought of them as intertwined and assumed that a mentor would also be a sponsor. But as you've pointed out, that's not always the case. Although it would be wonderful if it was. So I would be remiss if I didn't see if Bebita is on this call so she can say a quick hello to everyone and thank them for being here. Bebita?
Hey, I'm hoping you guys can hear me.
Yes.
Once again, hi everyone. I'm gonna keep it very short because I know everybody's time is very important, but I first of all, thank you to all our wonderful panelists for taking the time and joining us on this panel, and our attendees for wanting to learn more about DE&I and, you know, in terms of the tech outlook. And you see how important to have organization and to have something like DE&I chapter for TAG, how important that is. You've heard from Dr. Loretta, you know, in terms of only 8% of Black tech talent out there. So we're here, TAG is here in order to be able to provide you resources, connection, networking, as much as you can. So definitely make sure you connect with us on LinkedIn, or you can email us directly, and, you know, in our email, and I can also drop that in the chat too. It's tag.dnisociety@gmail.com. And of course, our website is tagonline.com as well. So definitely be a member. It's open to companies, small businesses, entrepreneurs, individuals. We have over 20 chapters. We're like the largest nonprofit organization, tech company organization here in the state of Georgia. So there's a lot for you in there. So I definitely encourage everyone to really go in, check for more information. And all of us here in Cassia, who is also one of our board members, is here to help you out in terms of whatever you need in terms of when it comes to DE&I, and we can connect you to the other chapters. I mean, we have young professionals, we have young professionals, we have, like I said, DE&I, we have marketing, we have sales infrastructure. There's something for everybody. Trust me on this. Over 20 societies, I bet you there's something in there for you, but the only way you're going to know is for you to actually go ahead and connect with us online on LinkedIn, as well as tag online or email us. So again, thank you. And I hope you guys have enjoyed this. We're hoping to do more of these. And so you want to get on our mailing list as well. So thank you, thank you, thank you.
Thanks, Bebita. And I would be remiss if I don't call out that if you stay on a little bit past 1 o'clock, because we are at the hour, LaShaun will be taking a selfie with all of us, and we'll prompt you to that. I'll also call out in the chat, Damon Burton had a question for Southern Company, but it looks like he had to drop off. So Aliyah will share his contact information with you afterwards and see if you can answer his question for you about Southern Company. And Chanu, I see that you are interested in engaging with us. Please do send us a message on LinkedIn, engage with us in the chat with your contact information. And of course, please feel free to reach out to Bebita, Develle, or myself, and we'd love to tell you about our society and how you could get involved. And of course, panelists, it looks like you can't turn on cameras or mics, so if you do have questions, please drop them in the chat. And then lastly, Develle, let's talk a little bit about what they can expect from us. So I'll ask you an off-the-cuff question. Develle, what have you enjoyed since you're a relatively new member of TAG DEI? What has engaged you with this?
It's the connection to not only other DE&I professionals, but tech professionals at all levels. I mean, I've been on panels with CEOs and CROs and et cetera with this society. So that's the connections, the networking. That's what's so very, very valuable to me.
I love that. And I will also remind everyone that though we are doing webinars to kick us off this year, we'll have this one, and then in April, we have another very exciting webinar that's just come together. We're hoping to do in person this summer, and we've already started planning a fantastic event to get you all together and with other societies and with other members. So please do reach out to us again on LinkedIn or via email or in this chat if you'd like to connect. And I think for now, it looks like we've closed out the questions that can be answered because some of our questions come from those who had to drop off for meetings, but we'd like to once again thank our phenomenal panelists. As Develle mentioned, where else do you get a VP like Kianta, a hiring manager like Aliyah, all in one space with Dr. Loretta Daniels and LaShaun Solomon, and in your lunch break? Where else can you do that? So thank you so much, and thank you to Diversity Cyber Council for sponsoring this webinar. We are looking forward to the next one, and thank you to FleetCor and Comcast Business for supporting our society and the work that we're doing. Again, please reach out to us if you'd like to be involved. And with that, I'll say thank you, Develle Turner, for making time from your busy schedule to co-host this with us. We couldn't have done it without you.
Thank you.
Thank you all. Bye-bye.